And then there's the stigma. If only we could come up with a word that didn't say committed suicide, because that reeks of it being of crime, but it's not. But the stigma is very real.
Well, we find there's a bit of a stigma attached to it, especially in the farming community. There's a bit of a get on with it approach, or man up, or those kind of words attached with it. So becoming a facilitator of this program, one of the things I wanted to get across to people was that it's not a bad thing to be suffering from mental health, and those stigmas are pretty old school. So these days we just need to help people through it and show them support rather than attaching that stigma to it.
My own father committed suicide when I was 5 years old, and I lived in a rural community, and there was a huge stigma around it, so much so that I was kind of labelled as the child that, whose father committed suicide 15 years later. And I can say honestly to this day, that every day I think of him, and it affects the way I am and who I am today. So the after effects of suicide is just tremendous. It doesn't go away. I wonder every day what he would think of me now and who I am and who I've become, and wonder what he would have been like, because he died younger than I am now, and that's quite an eerie thought, really.
And it's so judgmental, and that's something that, and I guess I was as judgmental as the next person until you experience it yourself. You know what? These people don't decide to do it just to annoy other people, or they're not thinking about consequences. They're not thinking what the impact is to people around them. Like this guy I was talking about, a young farmers member, had 2 preschool girls. Now he wasn't thinking, what, I'm going to screw their lives up potentially by doing this. So to me, the commit word is a blame word, and we've got to move away from that.
It's bloody terrible, especially when I started as a young bloke, testosterone fueled. The last thing I want to do is be labelled as weak or not right in the head and all sorts, and that sort of crashes you and holds you back from talking about it. It makes it worse. You just stew in your own head and you never get away from it.
There is a huge stigma around depression, and we think we are getting on top of it, but really we're not. When you talk to the rural community, it is inherently inside that community, that stigma. I did not tell anyone I had depression until recently. About 2 years ago, I started speaking out about it and saying, look, I don't care if you know if I had depression, it doesn't change me as a person. And I think people like John Kerwin have made great inroads in that area, and Doug Avery, by speaking out. But we need more people to come forward. We need more people to tell their stories. And some of our young farmer members have been so brave in telling us their stories, and it's helped. Every time someone tells a story, there's 100 people will contact us and say, look, I've had the same thing. I'm so grateful they spoke out. So be brave, share your story, because that's the only way we're going to improve the situation.